Hello everyone, welcome to a video. Hello everyone, welcome to a video. Hold on. That's better. I literally hate whenever I open OBS, it closes my web browser. I gotta reopen it because I'm making these videos. I use my browser. All right, so we're gonna do who I voted for in every election. So basically, how it works is we are gonna start off with this election, 1788 to 1789. To today, 2024. So, let's start off. Alright, so in the first two elections, that being 1788 to 1789, so this one, let's see, who are we gonna vote for? Let's see, of course we're voting for George Washington. Is this even a question at this point? So we're voting for him, obviously. And Rhode Island was actually a state then, fun fact. And in green, wow, I wonder who won. I wonder who won in this election, guys. I wonder who won. Oh my, it was George Washington. Who's shocked? Alright, 1796 was the first election we care about. So, we can either go with John Adams of the Federalist Party or Thomas Jefferson of the Democratic Republicans. So, the Federalists are generally kind of Democratic Party, if you will. Or they're conservative. Hold on, let me see. Okay, I gotta pause the video. Hold on, guys. I would like to mention this video idea was inspired by Monster Z and Mr. Beat. They made videos on this. Like, who would they vote for? And I'm going to do it in that I have so it's going to be a hindsight in at the time. So hindsight means what we know now. So, like, for instance, in 2020, we didn't know Biden was not doing the best in health, let's just say. Whereas now, in 2024, we know he wasn't the best in health. So, if you knew that in 2020, you probably wouldn't have voted for him. You probably would have voted for Trump or a third party. That's what I mean. Like, for instance, you probably would have voted for, let me think, probably wouldn't have voted for George H.W. Bush if you, knew he wouldn't keep his campaign promise. That's an example of what I would mean. So, let's go back to 1796 election. The Federalists were the more conservative party who called for a national bank and good relations with Britain. Democratic Republicans, on the other hand, these were two major political parties at the time. These were generally what could be considered the Republican Party back then, and they did not like other nations. Kind of accurate to how the Republican Party is today. Which, when you think about it, these two parties are basically this is the Republican Party and it's basically the Democrat Party. I mean, generally, when you think about it. So, anyways, John Adams was the successor of George Washington. He was essentially his hand-picked successor, and Thomas Jefferson was Washington's Secretary of State. So both of these guys were extremely important members of Washington's cabinet. So this election was extremely close. Like, it was decided by 3 electoral votes, which, if this election happened today, it would be closer than 2000, and it was closer than 2000. 2000 was decided by, I think, 5 electoral votes. Let me double check. Hold on. Hold on. I think it was decided by either 5 or 4. Let's see. It was decided by, yeah, 5 electoral votes. That's basically the equivalent of this election. And it was a tight race. Like, seriously, had Adams not gotten this vote from Pennsylvania, it or if Adams hadn't gotten any of these extra votes, Jefferson would have won the election. That's how close it was. And the way it worked was basically whoever got second would become the vice president. So If Jefferson won, Adams would be VP, and if Adams won, which he did, Jefferson was VP. And after that, since there were two different parties, this 12th Amendment became a thing. So, so then it was, they'd nominate a running mate. So, like, Thomas Pinckney did not get more electoral votes than Jefferson. That's why he wasn't vice president. Same thing with Aaron Burr. If had Jefferson won, Adams would have been VP. So that's just the system explained. This only matters for this election because the first two elections were uncontested. Same with 1820. So this election, knowing what we know now, I probably would vote for Jefferson, but back then, since we didn't know, I probably would vote for Adams because Adams was Washington's handpicked successor, and if it wasn't for him, getting good relation with Britain. Oh, wait, no, it was good relation with France, not Britain. Unless we're getting good relations with France, we wouldn't have ever had Louisiana Purchase. So that's why I would have voted for Adams then. But knowing what we know, I probably voted for. I'd probably vote Adams no matter what, actually. Alright, for 1800, I'm voting Jefferson. Jefferson was successfully able to win New York. He would. So yeah, Jefferson did, he beat Adams. And, that's how it was. This is also the first election when the 12th Amendment didn't exist anymore. Like, this is the first time when the 12th Amendment actually happened, I should say. Wait, hold on. Yeah, okay. So, wait a sec. Wait. Oh, okay. Alright. So, okay. 4th Amendment only affected 1804 and onwards. Alright, 12th Amendment. Alright, so who would have voted for it? So, at the time, and in hindsight, Jefferson, because Adams was the one who passed the Alien Sedition Acts by weakening liberty, like your rights. So I wouldn't have voted for Adams. Alright, go for 1804. 1804, this isn't even a question. I mean, come on. Who else are we going to vote for? I mean, if the answer isn't obvious, we're obviously voting for Thomas Jefferson. I mean, this isn't even a question. We have to vote Jefferson. I mean, look at this map. He basically won every state. I mean, that's insane. He also won. He had the largest popular vote victory ever. Although, granted, there was only less than 150,000 votes casted, though, so it's not saying much. Anyway, let's go to 1808. All right, 1808. So this election was between the Federalists, Mr. Coatsworth Pinckney, and James Madison. So who would we vote for? All right. So James Madison was the same party as Thomas Jefferson, and Thomas Jefferson was extremely good. If we disregard the Embargo Act, obviously, but if we disregard that, then I probably would have. Wait, hold on. Wait. Oh, all right. I was wondering what that meant, but okay. So I probably voted for Madison no matter what, because the Federalists at this point were on the collapse after. After their defeat in 1800, they were still somewhat successful, but after 1804, they basically just collapsed entirely. Okay, let's go back to where were we? 1812. All right, Madison yet again. We're the Federalists. So this election was even closer than the last one. Election was close. So let's just quickly go over who we voted for. So the War of 1812 happened because of Madison. And since the War of 1812 was a disaster, because at the time no one would have known that the war would result in a stalemate. So knowing that now, I probably voted for Madison, but back then I would have voted for DeWitt Clinton. I would have voted. Oh wait, both of these got Democratic Republican. I just realized. Oh, and Elbridge Gary, he's the reason why gerrymandering exists. He's named that. That's why it's gerrymandering, because that he's the namesake is he was the one who started the practice of gerrymandering. That's a fun fact. But anyways, at the time I would have voted for Clinton, but knowing who we know now, I would have voted for Madison. All right, 1816. It's Rufus King or James Monroe. I mean, James Monroe. We know we would have known the War of 1812 was a success. I mean, Thomas Jefferson supported Monroe, and Thomas Jefferson was extremely popular. I mean, this isn't even a question. We're obviously voting Monroe. Shouldn't even be a question at this point. Okay, and let's see. Who was the person who ran in 1820? Oh wait, it was uncontested. Okay. All right, 1824. So between four people, Henry Clay and William Crawford. We're going to ignore these two. Drill way down to John Quincy Adams and Andrew Jackson. So, all right. So here's Andrew Jackson. So he's Democrat Republican. Oh, wait, both these guys are. Oh, okay. So Jackson was the one who founded the Democratic Party. Well, it was actually Martin Van Buren, but he was the one who, he was like the first Democratic candidate. If that makes sense. Go to 1828 real quick. As you can see, he was Democratic. So if it wasn't for him, the Democratic Party would never exist. And the Democratic Party is very important. So no good now. I would have voted for Jackson, but back then, I'm not honestly sure because I have no idea who to vote for because Crawford and Clay. I mean, we can just ignore them. They didn't do much. I mean, Clay didn't even get into the House of Representatives vote, and then Crawford. Well, I mean, he didn't. He wasn't close either. So realistically, I don't know who I would have voted for back then. I guess Quincy Adams, because John Adams wasn't bad, so I guess I would vote for him. I don't know, honestly. In hindsight, I probably would have voted for Jackson now. Okay, 1828. This was a rematch. So, John Quincy Adams was, as it turns out, pretty bad. Not the best president. Corrupt bargain, we know that. So, obviously, we're voting Andrew Jackson. I mean, we didn't know Trail of Tears would happen, but Trail of Tears was generally popular back then. I mean, everyone was racist. Well, not everyone, but people were racist. I mean, slavery was pretty popular then because it was legal then, you know. So, Trail of Tears wasn't like historically Trail of Tears was terrible, but back then I don't think people really cared. People support it. Let me look it up. Did people? I gotta double check this. Hold on. Now I'm curious. Let's see. Yeah, basically everyone supported it except for the Native American tribes. All right, so that was pretty popular then. So I mean, um, so comforting. So if I was someone who was alive then, I probably would support Jackson. And Trail of Tears was horrendous. Obviously, back then everyone supported it. So I mean, unfortunately, in hindsight, I probably would still vote for Jackson anyway, even though I have nothing against Native American people. Obviously. All right, where were we? Okay, we're now on 1832. Jackson, Henry Clay, John Floyd, and Nullifier Party, or the anti-Masonic. This is the people who don't like the Freemasons. If you ever watch National Treasure, you'll know what I mean. If anyone's ever watched National Treasure. So generally, so the only state that won was Vermont, which had 7 votes back then. I'm not making this up. And then Teal was won by the Nullifier Party. Astra was won by the National Republicans. And Democrats won everything else. So, I mean, we're obviously voting Jackson again. Wait, Trail Cheers didn't happen when in Jackson's first term. So Well, the bank war happened. I think the bank war was pretty bad. It led to the panic of 1830s. I forgot the exact year. I think it was like 1835 or something. So knowing we know now, I probably wouldn't have voted for Jackson, but back then I would have voted for him. So 1846. Right, Van Buren versus William Henry Harrison versus Hugh L. White versus Daniel Webster versus Willie P. Magnum. And both of these guys had John Tyler as their running mate. These two, these four all had this. Yeah, this is real. This election was confusing. The Whigs ran four candidates for some reason, which I don't know what they were thinking with that strategy. I mean, I guess it might have worked, but like, oh, and the Whigs were generally the Republican Party. They're basically the equivalent, as you can see. Their de facto successor was the Republicans. So the Whigs are basically just the Republicans. Just imagine that. So just imagine the Whigs are the Republicans, and Democrats are both Democrats. So it's basically Republicans versus Democrats. That's basically unofficially the first time the Republicans ran. So this election was insane because of how many states there were. So in green, it was the Nullifier Party. They were really only popular in South Carolina. Was this one, but not now. Oh my god. So maroon. So pink is the Massachusetts. That was won by Webster because that was his home state. Maroon is some of the southeast, only Georgia and Tennessee. Yellow, one's won by the Whig, like the real Whig Party. In other words, the ones that actually Harrison ran in the election after this one, 1840. We'll go over that one later. And by later, I mean in a few minutes, less than a few minutes. Then Van Buren won everything else. So Van Buren was Jefferson Jackson. I mean Jackson was relatively popular. So since Jackson was relatively popular, so honestly, who do we vote for? So let's just pretend Hugh Elway, Magnum, and Webster are all the Whig Party. All right, let's just pretend all these votes. Let's pretend they're all united under the Whigs. All right, let's pretend they all ran as one candidate. All right, let's just pretend that happened just to make it more simplified. Because I'm not voting for any of these three. I'm really it's really between these two. So Van Buren could have not done the Trail of Tears if he wanted to. He could have just not decided to do it. It's not like he had to. I mean, he could have stopped it if he wanted to, but he didn't. So in hindsight, I probably would have voted for Van Buren, also because he caused an economic crash. But since we didn't know that then, I probably voted for Van Buren. But in hindsight, I would have voted for Harrison. All right, 1840. All right, it's between Harrison or Van Buren. I mean, so Van Buren. Okay, so Van Buren, Trail of Tears and economic crash. Harrison, though, he died after a month in office. So I mean, like, if I vote for Harrison, we know he's gonna die. If I vote for Van Buren, he caused an economic crash and a trail of tears. So neither of these are good candidates. But had Harrison not drank the DC water, he probably would have lived. So I guess we vote for Harrison here. Was it for John Tyler that we wouldn't have the nice success we have today, though. So I guess I'll vote for him. I guess I'll vote for Harrison. All right, where were we? So John Tyler was the one who well, he didn't annex Texas, but he was that's the reason why Tyler, Texas is a city. It was named after him. Also, this guy is who they named Dallas after. They named it after George M. Dallas. Two little fun facts. Anyways, so we have James K. Polk, the Democrats, and the Republicans, and they're the Whigs, but we'll pretend they're Republicans. Henry Clay, and this man, who has an absurd last name. I'm going to assume it's German. Let me see. Probably is a German name, I have a feeling. Yeah, these names sound German too. He's probably either Dutch or German. Okay, where were we? 1844, right. Okay, we can delete these two tabs. We don't need them. Alright. So, who would we vote for? So, it's between Polk, who accomplished a lot in its presidency, or Henry Clay. So since I probably would have voted for Polk because because Texas annexation was pretty popular, and Polk generally supported slavery, but that was also popular at the time. So at the time, I would have voted for Polk. But in hindsight, I probably would still vote for Polk anyway because slavery was popular then. It's obviously a terrible thing, but I mean, none of these people were going to abolish slavery. I mean, Clay couldn't because the South would, you know, do what they did in the Civil War. So Anyways, all right, Zachary Taylor, Martin Van Buren, or Lewis Cass. So who do we vote for? So free soil is basically just no slavery. Well, kinda. So free soil means that they did not want the expansion of slavery, so they were abolitionists. So they basically did not like slavery at all. Republicans also didn't like slavery. So due to this, it's basically between Republican, or Democrat. Oh yeah, No Nothing Party, yay! The good old Native American Party. The good old xenophobic party. We all love that party, guys. Being sarcastic. Alright, so Zachary Taylor died in office, and he supported slavery, because Democrats were supporters of slavery. And then Van Buren. So the question is, do we vote for the member who was aligned with xenophobic people? Do we vote for the abolitionist, or do we vote for slavery supporter? I guess, well, Martin Van Buren led to an economic crash. I don't know if I'd have faith in him running the country again. So, I guess Van Buren's not really a good option here. I mean, maybe Zachary Taylor? Yeah, let's just go for Zachary Taylor. I don't know, honestly, for that one. Alright, let's go to 1852. Alright, it was between Winfield Scott. Now, it's really weird how almost every controversial person in politics is from New Jersey. Or every terrible president. I mean, Woodrow Wilson was governor in New Jersey, and Grover Cleveland was born in New Jersey, and Grover Cleveland his presidency had an economic downturn, his second term, and and then there was Winfield Scott, who was all right general in the Civil War. He was not nearly as good as he was in the Mexican-American War. And there was McClellan, who, I mean, ran against Lincoln and failed miserably. So, and then we have Phil Murphy and Chris Christie, who are probably two of the worst governors ever. At least Chris Christie. Anyway, since we're back in New Jersey, let's get back to the video. Alright. When Franklin Pierce of the Democrats, or Winfield Scott. Now, Franklin Pierce, the poor guy, his son got literally killed in front of him. Got run over by a train. Poor guy. I would not want to be Franklin Pierce. Or Dudekin, depressed and alcoholic afterwards. I think he already was an alcoholic, but got worse then, but yeah, so it was not a fun time being Franklin Pierce. And that happened after he got elected. I think it was right before his inauguration. I'm not sure when. I think it was before his inauguration. Alright, so Winfield Scott, I'm not voting for him. So I guess I'd vote, I don't, well, Whigs didn't support slavery. And the, Free Soil Party isn't even on this page. They're not on the Wikipedia page, and they don't count. So, I guess that's what you got? I don't really know, though. Pierce was pretty bad, and I don't know. I don't think the military did a good job running the country. Eisenhower was a pretty good president, though. Alright, 1856. We have Millard Fillmore, who was a Republican. Oh wait, Whig. Fremont was the Republican in this case. And it was Democrat. Oh wait, American. Wait. Oh, American is a know-nothing party. All right. Well, we're not voting for him. We're not voting for the xenophobic candidate. So Buchanan was the one who basically caused the Civil War. And yes, I am aware Abraham Lincoln's election was a thing that made the Southern states succeed, but Buchanan generally was the one who kind of made the South kind of gave the South the ability to succeed because he didn't necessarily care. So Fremont is the only realistic option, the only really good option here. So I was voting for Fremont. Let's go to 1860. Okay, so it's between Abe Lincoln, John C. Breckinridge, Stephen A. Douglas, and John Bell. All right, so Breckinridge was basically pro-slavery party. Stephen Douglas was not as pro-slavery, but he still kind of was. John Bell he wanted the Union to want to preserve the Union. And it was Lincoln, who, I mean, we all know who Lincoln is. I mean, come on, we all know who Lincoln is. So the question is, who do we go with? Do we A, go with the guy who kind of led to the Civil War but didn't? Do we go with the slavery supporter? Do we go with the kind of slavery supporter, or do we go with the Union preserver? I think we go with John Bell. Because back then, I probably would vote for John Bell, but in hindsight, Abe Lincoln, obviously. But back then, I probably would vote for John Bell. Let's go to 1864. Alright. So, this election was unique in that, this is the map, and all these dark red states mean they were part of the Confederacy. And, Nevada only had 2 votes because one of their poor electors got stuck in their house. Oh, and, Tennessee and Louisiana didn't have any electoral votes because they were captured they were formerly part of the Confederacy and they got captured. Alright, so it's down to, oh yeah, this is the first election where absentee ballots existed. Oh, and the National Union is basically just the party to, unite, trying to unite the country. It's basically the unifier party, wanting to unite the country, which was going well. Point. The Democrats, they want an end to the war. So who do we vote for? So we vote for the guy who wants the war to end. Now, this was, this election happened in 1862. McClellan probably would have won. The election didn't happen in 1864. His election happened in 1862 or 1861. McClellan would have won easily. Because the war was not going in the Union's favor during these 62 and 61. After Gettysburg, though, the Union was just doing really well. But at the time, the Union wasn't doing the best up until Gettysburg. I mean, they were doing somewhat good, but the return were doing better. So, who do we vote for? So, we have the guy who wants to preserve the Union and unite it. He also was the guy who wants to end slavery. Or we vote for a dude who wants to battle the Confederacy and have peace and basically allow slavery to exist. The answer is obvious. We're obviously voting for Lincoln. This isn't even a question at this point. Okay, let's move to 1868. Alright, so this was the first election under Reconstruction. We have, oh, and then I think about it. Wasn't for this election, we wouldn't have Andrew Johnson as VP. Andrew Johnson was a pretty terrible president, but Lincoln was such a good president to the point which I had to vote for him. Okay, where were we? Okay, so it's between Grant and Seymour. So Seymour, oh, and green are states that were not allowed to vote because were not reconstructed yet. So who do we go with? All right, so Grant was basically want to get the Reconstruction Amendments passed, the 12th, 14th, oh wait, the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment. So, mm, alright, so who do we vote for? Alright, so we can either vote for the guy who led a pretty good campaign, but his administration became corrupt. Or do we vote for the guy who kind of supports the Democrats who support, well, the continuation of no civil rights? So we vote for Grant. In hindsight, I still would have voted for Grant because it wasn't necessarily Grant's fault for the corruption, although he probably should have, looked into his cabinet members. But Grant was way too trustworthy of his cabinet members, so I don't blame him, but at the same time, he really should have did something. Alright, where were we? Okay, so this election is extremely confusing because the major opponent of Grant freaking died. He died after election day, but he died before the votes are counted. Before the electoral votes are actually counted up, the electors go to vote. So as a result, do we vote for Grant or do we vote for the guy who dies? We obviously vote for Grant because we're not voting for a dead guy. I mean, it's not even much of a question. Alright, 1876. So we have Tilden versus Hayes. Alright. So this was the closest election in American history. Because in the Electoral College, it was led by one vote. In fact, it was so close to the point which if it wasn't, seriously, it was insane. It was insane. So 20 votes were, so here's the thing. So basically, how it went was, so basically, so the election was so close. So there were 20 votes that were contested, right? So Hayes had 165, and Tilden had 184. One of Oregon's votes was in dispute, and all of Louisiana, Florida, and South Carolina's votes were in dispute. So, here's how the election went. So basically, a committee was drawn up, and it was 15 people, one independent, and 7 Democrats and 7 Republicans. And then the independent resigned and was replaced with a Republican. And the vote followed party lines. So all 20 votes went to Hayes, so Hayes won. But because the South would obviously be, enraged about this, the South the North, in order to compromise, come 1877 happened, which ended Reconstruction. Which is the reason why the Solid South existed for Democrats up until the 80s and 70s. So that's the reason why the South was solidly blue up until the 60s, 70s, and 80s. Alright, so who do we vote for? In hindsight, so at the time, I don't really know. Tilden was generally anti-corruption. I mean, let me see, hold on. Yeah, so he was the one who broke up corruption. And he was an extremely good governor of New York. So, so as a result, I will vote for Tilden because he really should have won, honestly. But if it wasn't for the independent resigning, Tilden would have won the election. I mean, the election was pretty unfair. I probably would, in hindsight, vote for Tilden because I think he was the one who should have won. But at the time, I would have voted for Hayes because slavery's bad. Alright, 1880. Okay, there it is. 18. Alright, this is the closest possible vote margin in history because it was decided by under 2,000 votes. Alright, so it's between Winfield Scott, Hancock. I don't think it's the. Oh, it is the general. Wait. Yeah, it is. Alright, so it's between the general in the Mexican War, Winfield Scott, or James A. Garfield. And Garfield got shot the year after his presidency. So who do we go with? Alright. So Garfield was. Who do we go for? this is the solid blue South. So basically, Arkansas, Tennessee, North Carolina, and Virginia. So basically everything south of these three states, plus Texas, was solidly blue. Then Missouri, Kentucky, West Virginia, Maryland, Delaware, as well as Virginia, were generally states that didn't vote as Democrat. Virginia voted Democrat often, kinda. Arkansas always voted Republican. I mean Democrat. Arkansas was the only South state to always vote Democrat up until the solid blue South fell. So just imagine the blue wall today. This was basically the equivalent of the blue wall. Basically, the entire South of the nation voted blue, which is ironic because today the map looks like this usually. It's blue here and here, blue here. Then all of this is blue. This is usually blue. Blue, blue, and everything else is red. That's usually how maps go. Oh yeah, Illinois is blue. That's it. That's usually how the maps go today. This is basically just a reverse of the modern map. Basically, when you think about it. I don't even. I don't know what I was talking about there. I'm gonna shut up. All right, so I'm just gonna go for carpet. All right, 1884. It's between James G. Blaine or Grover Cleveland. So, all right. So, Blaine was somewhat corrupt, and he was alienated. He alienated Catholic voters. Then there was Cleveland. So I'd probably vote for Cleveland then. I don't think I would vote for Blaine. 1888. Cleveland or Harrison? So, so I think that I am going to vote for Cleveland yet again. Cleveland was for low tariffs. Like seriously, he hated tariffs. He despised them. I think his entire State of the Union speech was literally about tariffs. Almost all of his State of the Union speech was about tariffs. Yeah, Cleveland really hated tariffs, if you can't tell. So I would have voted for Cleveland. Alright, he also won the popular vote, that too. Alright, 1892. So in hindsight, so it's between Weaver, who's a populist, Cleveland, who's a Democrat, and Benjamin Harrison, who's a Republican. And yes, I am aware of the two third parties that were mentioned on the last page, but I didn't bring them up because they're not on this. Yet they're not on this little like box, then that means I don't count. So Weaver was populist, and the populists generally were ones who supported the amendment that allowed Senate to be elected by a popular vote. They supported stuff like that. They supported women's suffrage and stuff. And Donald Trump is somewhat of a populist, kinda. So populist is basically the farmers party, and they were supporters of gold and silver. They supported gold and silver. So they also supported like farming, supported rural development. They were progressive too. So they were like not bad. So I probably would have voted for the populists in this election because in hindsight, I would not vote for Cleveland. I wouldn't vote for Harrison because high tariffs are bad. I wouldn't vote for Cleveland because, well, Cleveland is he led to an economic downturn. So I wouldn't vote for him. So as a result, I'm gonna vote for Weaver. At the time, I would vote for Cleveland. No, now I would vote for Weaver. Oh, wait. In hindsight, I would vote for Weaver. But back then, I would vote for Cleveland. All right, 1896. It's between McKinley and Bryan. So I am going to go with Brian. I'm done with Brian because William McKinley, he did a lot. He was an imperialist. He supported the gold standard, which the gold standard wasn't a bad thing. And so uh, I generally don't I think McKinley was pretty bad. I was like, I mean, he wasn't a bad president, but like the Philippine American War was bad. I mean, Ryan was the one who made the Cross the Gold speech, supported free silver. He was a populist. Those are all good. I would vote for Brian. So, right, 1900s. Ryan or McKinley? In this case, I would vote for McKinley because, first off, Theodore Roosevelt is his running mate, and we all love Theodore Roosevelt, and we all know what happened to McKinley. He got shot, I'm not saying McKinley should have been shot, obviously, but Roosevelt was a pretty good president. So, I mean, Ryan. So, Johnny was doing better under McKinley. So, as a result, I would vote for McKinley. Plus imperialism was going well at that point, and Brian's message was getting worse because it didn't really matter as much to people, and so it was kind of a pointless vote. Honestly, I would vote for Brian, and so I would not vote for Brian in 1900. Right, 1904. Between Roosevelt and I'm not even gonna say anything. We're voting for Roosevelt. 1809. We're voting for Taft, Roosevelt's successor. I'm not even gonna say anything. Okay, it's between Wilson, Roosevelt, Eugene Debs. They only had Taft. I'm gonna eliminate Debs because I don't support socialism. I'm definitely against people like Bernie Sanders. I'm not claiming I despise socialists. I'm definitely against the socialists. I just don't agree with that. Between Woodrow Wilson, Theodore Roosevelt, and Taft. So, he was a progressive, and every time you can vote for Roosevelt, it's your duty to vote for him. So I obviously have to vote for Roosevelt. And Wilson was somewhat racist, and his 21 points didn't exist then. He also got the nation to World War One. Well, he kind of got the nation to World War One, but didn't. He kind of lied. It's confusing. All right, it's between Hughes and Wilson. We're voting for Hughes. I'm not voting Wilson. No one likes Wilson. Cox or Harding? Harding wasn't bad, so I'll probably vote for him. I wouldn't vote for Cox, honestly. Alright, it's between Coolidge, Lafayette, Lafayette, how do you spell it? Lafayette? Lafollette? Robert M. Lafayette. I don't know how you say his name, but John W. Davis. Now, the only state Lafayette one, Lafayette, I'm going to try to pronounce his name, but the only state he got was Wisconsin, his home state. Who do we go for? So, Coolidge was solid. I generally think progressivism isn't a bad movement. So, who do we So he was aligned with the Socialist Party, which is nothing wrong with that. So Coolidge was a bad president, and so who do we go for? So five is basically just a preview of what FDR would be, basically. So if you like FDR, you probably would like Lafayette. If you don't like FDR, you wouldn't like Lafayette. I didn't think FDR was alright for the time. He was good, but today he would just be the federal government would be like totalitarian if FDR was president today, honestly. For the time, Roosevelt did what he had to do. It was World War II, economic downturn, so I understand why he did all that. But I would not vote for Lafayette. He he's not bad. I wouldn't mind if I wouldn't mind voting for him if it was between Davis and him. But I probably would rather vote for Coolidge because I think Coolidge is a better president. So I'm gonna vote for Coolidge. Honestly. Alright, 1928. So no one would know now. We know Hoover, under his term, the Great Depression happened. So, I mean, I'm voting for Hoover. I mean, we did. In hindsight, I would have voted for Smith, but since we didn't know the Great Depression would happen, I'd vote for Hoover. 1932. FDR or Hoover? Hoover was trying to help the Depression, but FDR did a lot to aid the Depression. So as a result, he did a lot to like blow it and like get the Depression to end. He did a very good job with that. So I'm voting for FDR. In hindsight, I would vote for him, and at the time, I asked if I would vote for him. 1936, I'd vote for FDR again. Same reason as last time. This one, so this time, I probably would have voted for Wendell Willkie, honestly, because FDR, he was a good president for the Depression, but for World War II, I think we should have had someone different, honestly. FDR broke the two-term thing, broke the two-term tradition, and I mean, I really don't like a president who would break a tradition like that. And honestly, I have nothing against FDR. I mean, he was a great president during the Great Depression, and I don't think he was bad during World War II. But I definitely think I wouldn't vote for him. I'd vote for him honestly. Yeah, I probably in hindsight I probably vote for Wilkie, but back then I would vote for FDR. All right, 1944. So in hindsight, I would vote for Dewey, but back then I would vote for FDR yet again because we didn't know FDR was that sick. Well, the convention knew, but I'm not sure if the American people knew. They might have. I'm not sure what they did. Okay, 1948, it's between Strom Thurmond, who was supported segregation. We have Thomas Dewey again, or Truman. Alright. So Truman, so we're not voting for Thurmond because I'm not a segregationist. Although I do think states' rights is good. I do support states' rights, but I don't support segregation. So I wouldn't vote for him. Honestly, if he wasn't a segregationist, I probably would have voted for him, honestly. I probably would vote for him if he wasn't a segregationist. If he wasn't racist and a segregationist, I would vote for him. But since he was, so Dewey, I would probably vote for him, honestly. Now, Truman wasn't bad, but Truman was the Truman Doctrine. He started the Cold War. Berlin airlift was good, but the Truman Doctrine led to the Cold War, and we could have had a good relationship with the USSR and maybe made world peace a thing. We probably could have had world peace, honestly. It, if America tried to have a good relationship with the USSR, the USSR probably would have been like it wouldn't have been like Cold War. Thousands of millions of Americans wouldn't have died for nothing. So in hindsight, I would vote for Dewey. At the time, I'd probably vote for Truman. Right, 1952. Eisenhower. This isn't even a question. I'm voting for Eisenhower. Now Eisenhower, he was the one who made the interstate highway system. First off, he was a solid military leader, and he was he was pretty good president overall. He ran a pretty good campaign. So overall, I'm voting for Eisenhower. 1956. I mean, who do you think we're voting? Say it with me. Eisenhower. 1960. Okay, this is gonna be an interesting one. It's talking to be controversial. I'd vote for Nixon. I have nothing against JFK. I think he wasn't a bad president, but I probably wouldn't vote for him because I would rather have we had Nixon because Eisenhower was a solid president. Nixon was a good debater, sitting with Kennedy. Two were very equally matched. So I probably would have voted for Nixon. Now, Kennedy did plan on not starting Vietnam. Kennedy also was second president to be he was the fourth president to be assassinated. So I'm probably gonna vote for Nixon. Kennedy was not a bad president. Not a bad president. I just prefer Nixon because Eisenhower was good and Nixon was good during his other 2 terms. So his 2 terms where he won. So I'd probably vote for Nixon. Honestly, Kennedy was not a bad president. I'm not claiming I have anything against him. I have to vote for Nixon. All right, Johnson or Goldwater. Goldwater was kind of a radical. Well, he really was. The freaking KKK endorsed him. If that doesn't tell you anything, we're voting for Johnson, even though I personally wouldn't have voted for JFK. I probably would have voted for Johnson because Gary Goldwater was a supporter of. Well, he got endorsed by the freaking KKK, and it's and Goldwater was the one who opposed the Civil Rights Act, which that did kind of overstep federal control, but that was one of the times where the federal government had to step in. Honestly, that was one of the times I think the federal government should have stepped in, and it was good they did for once. Usually, I don't support the federal government, but this is one of the few times I think it was good that the federal government was expanded to control. It was also the only time Democrats actually got Alaska, by the way. All right, in 1968, Nixon, Humphrey, or Wallace. Wallace is segregationist. We're automatically not voting for him. All right, to Humphrey. So Nixon was one detente. He also did. He also was a solid president. What else was it? Under Nixon, we had a pretty good economy. I mean, I don't think he would have won 1972 that easily if it wasn't good. So I would vote for Nixon. 1972, we're voting for Nixon again. We're voting for him again. We have nothing wrong with McGovern, but we're voting Nixon. Right, 1976, Ford or Carter, we're voting for Gerald Ford. Also said Jimmy Carter, obviously. Actually, let me think about this. Hold on. At the time, I would have voted for Carter. In hindsight, I would vote for Gerald Ford. Okay, where were we? 1980. All right, Reagan or Carter or Anderson. How about Anderson? So Anderson was an independent. So okay, so at the time, I would have voted for Anderson. Hindsight, I would vote for Reagan because no one knew that Reagan was gonna have Reaganomics. Well, we didn't know if Reaganomics was gonna be such a massive success and lead to huge economy, lead to the Cold War basically ending and stuff. Like we didn't know all that would happen under Reagan's presidency. If I think if we knew that at the time, I think Reagan would have did even better. So as a result, in hindsight, I'd vote for Reagan, but I probably would vote for Anderson at the time. 1984. Okay, this is a very infamous year. I'm not talking about To Say Sweet. Well, it is, but that's because of 1884, the book. All right, so who do we go for? All right, it's between Nixon and Mondale. All right, so Nixon and I mean, why do I keep saying Nixon? Reagan and Mondale. Making mistakes. Okay, so Reagan versus Mondale. Mondale isn't bad, but I'm voting for Reagan. I mean, the economy was really good under Reagan. I mean, there wasn't. He recovered a nation from a recession, and he won almost every state, and he only lost. He didn't. He lost Minnesota from under 5,000 votes. So I'm voting for Reagan. 1988. Caucus or Bush? Right. So George W. Bush. So here, George H.W. Bush. So the thing with Bush was that we didn't know he'd break his campaign promise. He kinda had to, since he didn't have to. Dan Quayle's a terrible vice president. And I probably would have voted for the caucus. At the time, I would vote for Bush, but in hindsight, I'd probably vote for the caucus. 1992. Clinton, Bush, or Perot. Alright. So, Bill Clinton, I think he was a good president aside from the assault weapons ban. I think that was a violation of the Second Amendment. But disregarding that, I think Clinton was an amazing president. His conduct was terrible, but I mean, what matters more, policy or the person? I understand if you consider the person to be more important, but I think policy is more important in most cases. So I'd probably vote for Bill Clinton because Bush broke his campaign promise. At the time, I probably would vote for Perot, but since we know that Perot lost and even getting electoral votes, I would vote for Clinton. All right, 1996. Bill, Bob, or Ross Perot. Ross Perot did even worse. Ross Perot lost the last time. I'm not voting for him. I wouldn't have voted for him, so I'm voting for Clinton anyway. 2000. Gore or Bush? So Clinton's presidency was extremely prosperous. So I would have voted for his vice president. I would vote for Clinton's vice president. And plus, Bush was the reason why we got into Iraq, caused mass destruction, thousands of lives lost. In other words, Bush led to a lot of damage. So I probably would have voted for Gore. 2004. No, I have nothing wrong with Bush, but I'm voting for John Kerry. Nothing wrong with Bush. 2008. 2008, I'm voting for Obama. Black president. We didn't know that we didn't know yeah, Obamacare wouldn't have been the best. Obamacare isn't bad, but it isn't good. It's kind of mixed. Obamacare. It has some bad, but has some good. I wouldn't have voted for McCain. I've nothing wrong with McCain, obviously. I wouldn't have voted for McCain, honestly. I think I would. I think I would support change, and I would vote Obama. 2012. I would vote for Romney in 2012. Obama was not a terrible president. I mean, I don't think he was as bad as current presidents. He wasn't the worst. I probably have him in like the middle to low. I probably have Trump in the middle to like. I probably have Trump in the middle too. If I raise him for president. So, so yeah, I'm gonna vote for Obama. I mean, no wait. I wait. I mean Romney. I'm voting for Romney. So yeah. All right, 2016. This is gonna be an interesting one. All right, so Libertarian Party isn't listed here, but I'm gonna count Libertarian Party in this case because Libertarian Party won 50% of the popular vote. I'm gonna break the rule because the Libertarian Party did. I think it got around 3.2% of the popular vote, what I remember. Either way, I'm probably gonna vote for the Libertarians. Since I'm voting for Libertarian, so here's how we're gonna vote. So, in hindsight, I probably would have voted. At that time, I would probably have voted for Libertarian. Actually, I probably would have voted for Trump, honestly, because he was an outsider. He would have gotten the establishment out. So yeah, I would have voted for Trump. All right, 2020. So, I mean, I'm voting Libertarian this election in hindsight because I literally, because Trump, we I mean, we all know what happened after the 2020 election. We all know how Trump reacted. For that alone, in hindsight, I wouldn't vote for him, and I wouldn't vote for Biden either in hindsight because we wouldn't know about his health condition. At the time, I probably would have voted for Trump. I'm not sure honestly. At the time, in hindsight, I probably would have voted for Libertarian, and at the time, I probably I don't know who I'd vote for. At the time, I'd guess I'd vote for Trump. I'd probably vote for Trump at the time. I don't know honestly for this election. I could go either way. In hindsight, though, I'd vote Libertarian. 2020, Trump or Kamala. All right. So Kamala, is it Kamala or is it Kamala? Either way, I'm not gonna vote for her because she's related to the Biden-Harris administration, and we all know what happened under Biden. High inflation, higher costs for everything. Um, just Biden's terrible content in the debate. She didn't even win the primary election, Harris. I mean, every state she won didn't have voter ID. I mean, I really cannot vote for Harris. I've nothing against her. I also probably wouldn't vote for Trump either because, I mean, Trump is we all know what we all know what happened after 2020 election, and because of that, I wouldn't have voted for him. I wouldn't vote for Harris either. I'm not sure because we don't. In hindsight, I don't know who to vote for because we don't know how Trump's term is going to go. If Trump's term is going to go well, in hindsight, I vote for him. If it doesn't go well, in hindsight, I'd probably vote for Libertarian. At the time now, I guess I'd vote for Trump because of how bad Biden's administration was. So I guess I'd vote for Trump in 2024. I guess that's who I'd vote for. Yeah, I'm not really sure for this election, honestly. I guess I'd vote for Trump. Well, that is it for this video. See you all later. So, goodbye, guys.